Okay, that's working. Okay. Ready or not, as they say. Okay, I'm going to mute everyone. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question directly connected to what we are saying, or send it in the chat. I'll try to respond. Today is a long chapter. This is a chapter of Tehillim with 40 psukim, 40 verses. We had one chapter 18, that had 51, so more than this, but still, it's I don't know, it's the fifth to longest chapter in Tehillim. And I was looking at it, and I was trying to think and trying to see if there was a natural stop at some point in the middle of the chapter that maybe we'd do it in two shots, but there wasn't. And it's actually a little bit repetitive. Actually, the Radak discusses the fact that it's repetitive. Even that's how much it's repetitive. But instead of what we usually do, usually when we go through it once with a basic translation, and then we come back and do it a second time with a more in-depth translation. Because of its length, we're going to do it once, and we're going to do it with a I'll try to translate every pasuk with a basic translation, and then with some commentary. Not every chapter, not every verse, not every pasuk has a detailed commentary. As an introduction, so we had a big break. We had a few weeks that we didn't have Tehillim because we had Shavuos, and then the baby. I don't know if the baby's going to make a magical appearance in this video, but he might come at some point. So there was some time off, and it's a funny time to have time off because chapter 37 is connected to chapter 36. It's kind of a continuation of chapter 36. In previous chapter, we talked about the different thoughts about how the Russia conceives different ideas and wants to derail the tzaddik. And in this chapter is David HaMelech giving you a pep talk about not worrying, not looking at the success of the Russia, of the evil, of the bad person, and focus on what you need to do. And don't worry, what they're going through is momentary. What you're going to get is going to be everlasting, which is basically what David HaMelech repeats a few times throughout this chapter. So it's just in a form of introduction. It's interesting, though, that the Sfarnu, and it's too long of a chapter to go through it. Sometimes when we have a commentary that has a different approach to the chapter of Tehillim, so we go through it verse by verse and show his approach throughout the verses. The Sfarnu does do that for the most part in this chapter, but we're not going to do it. I'm just going to give it in the introduction. It would take too long to go through and explain it verse by verse. But the Sfarnu says that this chapter is talking about not focusing on the success of Rishayim, evildoers, of people that go against Hashem. So the Sfarnu says that the whole chapter is David HaMelech giving encouragement to Rechavam. Rechavam ben Shleima was the first king of Malchus Beis David, the first king of the house of David, that after the split, that there was Malchus Yisrael and Malchus Beis David. So those are familiar a little bit with the story, the history of the Jewish people. At one point, the kingdom of David HaMelech was king over, with all the troubles and everything, but he was king over all of the Jewish people. And so was Shlomo Melech, but afterwards it got split, and there was a kingdom of Judah, and that's where the name of Judea, of Yehuda and Shimron, Judea, comes from that word, and even us Jews comes from that word. Yehudim comes from the word Yehuda because of Shevet Yehuda, so that is Malchus Beis David that continued, and then there was Malchus Yisrael. There was the others that were part of a breakaway, so to speak, and the breakaway was a it was problematic. It was so some say, or the Sfarnu specifically says that this chapter is talking to Rechavam, that the kingdom of David that split away until the time of Chizkiah, and he's telling them, don't be jealous of Yeravam, don't be jealous of the others, Malchus Yisrael. You have to just focus on what you have to do, follow in Hashem's ways, and everything will be good.
Rebbe
So
Leibel,
that's yeah.
was King David was after the break only
No,
Yehuda?
no,
No,
on
wait
the
a
contrary.
minute. Yehuda and Binyamin, no?
Yehuda and Yisrael, but who stayed in Malchus Yehuda? Yes, and some and part of Shevet Levi.
Because we say always the 10 lost tribes. There
10
were
lost
12
tribes,
tribes.
Right.
That means you
Right.
had to have 2.
Yes, yeah, exactly. If I remember correctly, it was Yehuda and Binyamin, because that was the section where the Beis Mikdash was. And part of Shevet Levi, meaning a bunch of Kohanim and Leviim. That's yeah. More about that actually, if I remember. Yeah, I think more about that in the JLI lesson this week, in lesson 6. We're going to be talking about the 10 lost tribes and when they're going to come back, to be part of the Jewish people. Where are they? What happened to them, etc. It's a small part of lesson 6 in the JLI course this week. But it's interesting just that the Sfarna says this, but as Philip, as you mentioned, it's Take David HaMelech is prior, and quite a bit prior. So whether it was done in a prophetic way or it was added into the Tehillim after, as we talked about, there's many different opinions as to who said what in Tehillim, but this definitely starts off LeDavid, by David. This capital Tehillim, chapter 37, capital Amid Zayin, LeDavid, by King David. Al tischar b'marei. So what does he start off? He says, don't associate, right? Don't say you as a person. Don't associate, and don't be jealous of mireim. Mireim, the Hebrew word mireim comes from the word ra. Ra means bad, right? So don't associate, and don't be jealous of those who do bad, which is the Rasha. Most commentaries say that the Rasha is referring to is people that steal. People that go around and for a living, what they do is steal. They don't make an honest living, they steal. And why shouldn't you? The basic pshat, the basic understanding of this pasuk is, why shouldn't you be connected? Why shouldn't you have anything to do with these evil people? Is because you might learn from them and you go in their ways. And then he continues, al tikane, and don't be jealous. So first of all, don't mingle with them and don't be jealous. What's the difference between the two of them? The mingle with them is in a physical way. Go to their houses, go to their parties or whatever. And Altikana is even in your mind. I'm not going to mingle with them, but look at that car that Rasha has. Look at the car that he's driving. Look at the house that he has, because that also will bring you to maybe want to go in their ways. But you say avla in those who do negative, those who sin. So that's the first pasuk, and that's the difference between tischar, hanging around them. That's in person, and tekane is in thought. Even in your thoughts, you shouldn't be thinking about the Rasha. The Alshich says that it's not two separate things. It's a continuation to the other. That al tischar, don't mingle with them. That way, al tekane, you won't be jealous of them. Why? Ki kechatzir meheira yimalu. That what's going to happen to them? Very carefully, very quickly, they'll be like grass. Chatzir is grass that will quickly be cut down. Right? How high does grass grow? Grass doesn't stay. You have to cut your grass. And they're going to be like the green of vegetation that once it's disconnected from the ground, it dries out. So that's this Rasha. The Metzudah says, don't focus on their successes. What's that their successes is like blades of grass. As soon as it's cut off, it won't last. They'll be cut down. So even if a Rasha is being successful, don't focus on their successes because it won't last. That's the way Metzudas explains it. The Alshich, it's actually interesting, as many of you know, the Alshich in general on Tehillim, he has his own approach to some of the psukim in Tehillim, and he does a good job here too. So the Alshich comes over here and says that there is the idea that he gives an analogy of success. He compares it to blades of grass. Why blades of grass? Because blades of grass, when it's cut, it's going to dry it eventually. Right when it's cut, it's still got some moisture. It's going to take some time, and the thicker or whatever, the longer, the thicker it is, it's going to take longer to dry out. The same is with a Rasha, with these people who make a living in an improper way, with people that make a living, as I mentioned, most commentators say it's talking about a Rasha that makes a living by stealing. So these people are what? A Rasha is cut off from Hashem. Someone that's cut off from Hashem will dry out eventually. Meaning, even if today he's doing well, eventually he will, and as it's mentioned in this chapter a few times, the Rasha eventually will wither away. Not only that, you won't even notice that he ever was there. Pasuk number 3. So what should you do? So first, the first two psukim, it says about staying away from a Rasha, staying away from this evil person, because their successes are short-lived. What should you do? B'tach b'Hashem, you should put your trust in Hashem. And v'asei toiv, you should put your trust in Hashem, and you should do good. Shchan eretz u're'ei emunah, you should dwell in the land, and you should seed, you should plant emunah, faith. So what's this idea over here? This pasuk, especially the end of the pasuk, is something that's talked about a lot in Chassidic philosophy. So Rashi says over here, by pasuk 3, Rashi says that you should put your trust in Hashem. Don't say that if I give tzedakah, if I do charity, it's very interesting that the Rashi grabs onto that example, because it could be any mitzvah, it could be anything that you do, it could be spending money on buying a sukkah, it could be any mitzvah. Rashi grabs the example of tzedakah, and a person shouldn't say, if I give tzedakah today, what's going to happen? I'm not going to have money to put food on the table. I'm not going to. Maybe I have enough money today, but what's going to be tomorrow? What's going to be next year? I can't give away $100 now. Yes, I have enough money for today, for next week, for next year. But what it's going to be in the year after, I have to save, I have to make sure that I have so that's what Rashi says, that David HaMelech is saying, B'tach b'Hashem, put your trust in Hashem, and do toiv. Do toiv is to give tzedakah. And then what's going to happen? Shchan eretz, you're going to live in the land, or emunah, you're going to live for a long time. You're going to outlast everybody else. You're going to live in the land for a long time. And it's mentioned a few times in this chapter about living long on the land, and I'm going to explain it in different ways also as we go along through this chapter. The Radak says that you should switch the words. It shouldn't be betach b'Hashem b'asei toiv. It should be asei toiv betach b'Hashem. You shouldn't wait until you have full trust in Hashem. Oh, full trust in Hashem. Now I'm going to give tzedakah. Now I'm going to go out there and help somebody else. Now I'm going to go and do this mitzvah. Now, you should make sure to betach b'Hashem. You should make sure to put your trust, that you should do good first, and that will help you put your trust to Hashem. Someone had a question? If you have a question, you can unmute yourself.
Oh, yes, I did. Hi, Rabbi Label.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I also just want to say that I love your father and your mother's teachings. But I just had a question, because I found this a little similar, like the beginning to Parak 129. And to me, it was kind of like, this is the before and 129 is the after. Like, it's telling you what to do, and then it's Hashem is like answering it in 129 regarding like our enemies and like.
Right. Okay. So I'll tell you that I'm going in order. So I went quickly and looked at the Shir Amalis. It's something, but I can't. If you would compare it to something before 37, I would probably be able to give you some sort of answer. But comparing it to something after, when I get to chapter 129, I don't know, about 3 years, we'll be able to discuss it that way. Absolutely. But yeah. Okay. So the Radak, so we mentioned the Radak. The Radak says, don't wait. until you have trust in Hashem. You should do good, and that will bring you to trust to bring you to trust in Hashem. The Al-Sheikh says that this is in response to the Rasha being successful and the Tzaddik suffering. So a person should put this simple pshat that if you see that a Rasha is being successful and a Tzaddik is suffering, put your trust in Hashem, because we're in it for the long term. We're not in it for the short term. So that is mainly the beginning of the verse. But then it says, Ure'ei emuna. Re'ei emuna, in this translation that I have over here, it says, be nourished by faith. Re'ei. But the literal words mean, Re'ei, to nourish faith. This is something that Hasidic philosophy has talked about a lot, nourishing faith, especially by a Rebbe, especially by a tzaddik. A tzaddik's job, a teacher's job, a Rebbe's job, a rabbi's job really, is to nourish faith. And that was Moshe Rabbeinu's job. It started with Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was Zanu Mefarnes Amuna. That was his job, to make sure to instill within us the idea of faith in Hashem. The fact that we're still around with faith in Hashem is because Moshe Rabbeinu started it all the way back then. But the Emunah, Rashi says, plant Emunah. The idea of planting Emunah is that you'll be blessed with parnasa in the merit of Emunah. So focus on the faith in Hashem, and you'll merit success in parnasa and other things, in the merit of the emunah, of the faith that you put on Hashem, and the fact that you only did good. Because there's many other people, as we mentioned before, al tischar b'mereim. There's the mereim, those who do negative, the bad, the ones who make a buck, but by on someone else's back, meaning by stealing. And a person might think, if I don't do that, how am I going to be successful? And that's what he says. B'tach b'Hashem, put your trust in Hashem and do only good. The Radak says the idea of planting emunah is that wherever you go, you should teach other people about faith and trust in Hashem. This is a job. This is not something that not only should you put trust in Hashem, as the beginning of pasuk number 3 says, but also wherever you go to other people as well, you should make sure that you instill faith into others. That's a job. That's a job that we have. Pasuk number 4, pasuk dal. V'yis'anag al Hashem. So this idea of not only that Hashem will that when you put your trust in Hashem, Hashem will give you what you need, and make sure that you live on the land, etc. But not only that, beyond the things that you need, there's also things that we enjoy, that we want, not because we need, but because we enjoy. And so the next pasuk, on a simple pshat at least, says that not only will Hashem give you the things that you need, He'll also give the things that you enjoy, delight, the things that you delight in. So that Hashem will also give that. And He'll give you mishalis libecha, not only the things that you need, the things that your heart desires, which is beyond the things that you need. Right? And that's the reward, not only things that we need, but also delicacies, extra things. The Radak says that the Radak translates it a little bit different, and he says, V'yis'anag al Hashem, that you should find joy, you should find excitement, enjoyment in your divine service, in your service of Hashem. That when it comes to Hashem, so some people could say, oh, I wake up in the morning, oh, Nebuch, I have to put on tefillin. I'm going to do it because that's what Hashem wants, but it's a drag. Or, oh, it's 7:30, I have to get onto the Torah. Nobody over here, for sure. But it's 7:30, I have to get onto the Torah class. So I really want to be on Netflix, but I'm going to, okay, I'll log into the Torah class, right? That's not finding it. That's schlepping into schlepping into the things that you're doing for Hashem, so to speak. But what's v'yis'anag al Hashem? The Radak explains that you should find enjoyment in your divine service. The Al-Sheikh says that it's referring to those who suffer in this world. That not everybody who, just because you do good doesn't mean that you're going to have an easy time. Some people suffer in this world. So be proud that you have the opportunity to serve Hashem. Some people can say, oh, it's a schwer zu sein a Yid, right? You know, the famous saying that it's so hard to be a Jew. It was an old saying that it goes back to the shtetl. It's actually a terrible saying. Schwer zu sein a Yid. No, we have such an opportunity. We are so lucky that we have the opportunity to serve Hashem. And that's the way we have to look at Veis Anagal Hashem. When it comes to our relationship with Hashem, we have to find the tainug, we have to find the enjoyment, the pleasure, the excitement in our service of Hashem. Interestingly enough, when you think about it, it was in the news, right? Bill Gates got divorced, right? Which was proof that money can't buy happiness. The richest man in the world, okay, second, third, I don't know what number he is, right? But one of the richest people in the world, he can't fix his marriage. She can't fix her marriage. They have all the money that you ever need. Can't fix the marriage, right? So money doesn't buy happiness. What buys happiness? So the Imam Leis uses this pasuk. He says, you want to find real joy, you want to find real pleasure. It's in the service of Hashem. When you do a mitzvah, when you spending money on and trying to convince yourself that you're enjoying, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't spend money, and I'm not saying that, but some people they're sad at home. Okay, so let me go on a trip, because if I go on a vacation, then I'm gonna find enjoyment. It doesn't work that way. If you you might be happy while you're on vacation, you come home, you do the same thing, and you might not even be happy on the vacation. It's not a fix. Spending money is not a fix. But if you spend money on a mitzvah, if you spend money on your relationship with Hashem, that could bring you happiness. And that ultimately, it doesn't even have to be money. When we do a mitzvah properly, that brings us to the ultimate enjoyment, and that brings us to joy. So it's not money, it's not external things, it comes from within. Our relationship with Hashem is what can bring us true joy. Done properly can bring us true joy. And that's also what's alluded to in pasuk number 4, V'is anag al Hashem, to find real tainug, V'is anag, to find real tainug, to find real joy. It's al Hashem, is when in our relationship with Hashem. And what's the byproduct? Hashem will give you everything that you want, everything that you desire. Pasuk number 5. Goil al Hashem darkecha. So there's another word that's used in Tehillim. It's called hashlech, and it's very similar to this word goil. Hashlech means to throw, right? Lishloach, to send. I have problems. I don't want problems. I'll put them on God. Let God deal with my problems. What's that saying? Instead of telling God how big your problems are, tell your problems how big your God is. And that's this pasuk. Goil al Hashem darkecha. Roll it onto Hashem. Put it onto Hashem. Don't worry about all the details, how it's going to happen, what's going to happen. Roll it onto Hashem. Give Hashem the opportunity to take care of it. That's obviously this comes after we do our part. It's not mentioned in the pasuk, but it goes without saying that it's not that we say, okay, I'm going to sit back. Actually, it was mentioned already before in pasuk number 3. As much as it says betach b'Hashem, that you should put your trust in Hashem, what does it say? Asay toiv. You got to do. You have to get out there and you have to do. And you have to do good things. You have to do positive things. You have to do the right things. What's toiv? Ultimately, what's toiv? What's goodness? Toiv is a mitzvah. Or that's what you got to do. So Goel al Hashem darkecha, when things are going rough, the pasuk tells us, put it onto Hashem, ubetach alav, and put your trust in Him. Who Yasan, Hashem will do what He needs to do. And again, this, it doesn't say it explicitly in the pasuk, but it obviously means after you do your part, that's when you put it onto Hashem. Meaning, I'm going to do what I need to do, and the rest I leave up to Hashem. That's the idea of the pasuk. And it's brought down very clearly in the Mamleh is that if you do everything that Hashem asked and you're still not seeing blessing in your life, don't give up. Don't give up. Put it on Hashem. And the Mamleh says, what does it mean to put it on Hashem? It means to daven. How do you take your problems and put it on Hashem? Right? You can't literally or physically do that. It's by davening. Take out a siddur, or even words that come straight from your heart. That's the idea of goil al Hashem, putting your problems towards Hashem through the idea of prayer. Rashi says that when you need whatever you need, you should refer it to Hashem. Tell Hashem what you need, and Hashem will take care. So the famous story of the future father-in-law that goes to interview his future son-in-law, and and he says, and he goes, his daughter is about to get engaged to this man, and he goes to meet him. He comes back, and his wife says, "No, how was the meeting?" He says, "It was fantastic." He says, "No, what was fantastic?" He says, "He thinks I'm God." He says, "What do you mean he thinks I'm God?" He says, "I asked him, what are you after marriage? What's going to be? How are you going to support the family?" He says, "God will provide." I said, what are you going to do to buy a house?" "God will provide." "What are you going to do about a car?" "God will provide." So he thinks I'm God. We're off to a good start. Right? But this is the idea of Goel al Hashem. This is ultimate. This is the ultimate Jewish approach. Today, in today's world, where people deal with all types of anxieties and all types of issues, because they feel a little bit out of control of what's going on in their own life. This is the pasuk. Goel al Hashem. Put it on to Hashem. Of course, we have to do what we need to do, but what we need to do is minor, taking one step in the right direction. Once that one step in the right direction is comfortable, now it's time for another step. So that's the idea of this pasuk. Pasuk number 6. Hashem, when Hashem will fulfill all your heart's desires. So think about it. Someone's going through troubles. He davens to Hashem, and all of a sudden, Hashem answers his prayers, and all the things that he wants, even the things that his heart desires, right? So what's going to happen? That shows everybody else, ka'ar, like the light of day. When Hashem will fulfill someone's desires, it's revealed to everyone, light as day, literally like the light as day, that the righteousness of that person is a tzaddik. From the word sikecha, the person's righteousness. Mishpatecha, and he finishes off that your judgment would be even brighter. This is different commentaries translate the afternoon light as differently. Some say that it means more light. Some say that it means less light. Some say that the morning light, it's heilig, it's always adding light. It starts off and it just adds and adds and adds. So therefore, the morning light is more. Some say the heat of the afternoon, and the sun of the afternoon is a stronger sun, and therefore that's a stronger light. But either way, it's a bright light that shines and shows that Hashem accepts your tzedek, your righteousness. Pasuk number 7. Doim la Hashem v'yischaylo. So sometimes a person is not so successful, and a person might say, "Well, I davened, I tried all my things, I took the step in the right direction. I'm trying. What's going on?" So the pasuk says, "Doim, wait, hold on. It's not over till it's over." And continues that you might think, "Oh, you didn't get an instant answer. You davened and you didn't get an instant answer. So still, al tischar b'mareim." David HaMelech reminds you something that he said six psukim earlier. Again, he reminds you again, al tischar b'mareim. Don't start running after those who steal for a living. As the commentaries translate it, but don't go to the Mireim, because ultimately they are not doing. Since they're not doing it in good faith, they won't last. So that's the simple pshat. Doim, though, the word doim, I translated as wait, because that's the way Rashi translates it. Wait for Hashem's deliverance. Rashi also brings down from Menachem. Very often there was someone at the time that his name was Menachem, and Rashi sometimes quotes him, and he says that Menachem says that it should be that doim is more about being, instead of wait, it's about being quiet. There's a verse in the Torah when Aaron's 2 children went into the Mishkan. So it's recent. We read it in the Torah recently. When Aaron's 2 children go into the Mishkan with incense when they weren't supposed to go, and they died. And Moshe Rabbeinu comes and tells him, "B'krevei HaKadosh." He tries to give him, that Hashem takes the ones who are closest to him, etc. But what does it say about Aaron? It says, "Vayidom Aaron," that Aaron was silent. Aaron was silent, and he actually got rewarded for being silent. But that's a conversation another time. But Menachem in Rashi translates doim to be quiet. That wait, but the idea of being quiet, not to make such a big tumult. Hashem has his calculations, and Hashem will come to you when it's your time. The Metzudas says doim over here means to put your hope in Hashem. The Radak says that it means to praise Hashem, and then at the but all these commentaries, that daim ultimately means either wait or be quiet, but Hashem will come to you in the right time that you need it. That's when Hashem is going to come to you. And don't meanwhile say, oh, I'm not being successful, so therefore I'm going to run and go to those who are being successful in a non-kosher way. Should make sure to stay away from that. And that's the end of the pasuk number 7. Pasuk ches, pasuk number 8, heref me'av. So you should stay away from those things that make anger. And again, another type of anger, and al tischar ach lahareya, and you shouldn't mingle with those who do bad. Lahareya from the word rav, those who do bad. This is also kind of a repetition of what he's been saying until now, though we'll see in a moment the Alshich has a different approach. Rashi, on a basic level, this pasuk, Rashi says that the idea is stay away from doing bad, because bad brings anger to Hashem. Hashem gets angry when you do bad, so stay away from doing bad. That's heref me'af, stay away from bad, because that will make Hashem angry. The Alshich over here says that it's talking from a whole different perspective. The person that notices that the Rasha is being successful, that the evildoer is being successful, so what does that do? It boils your blood, it makes you angry. I'm trying to do everything right, and I can barely put 2 pennies together. And meanwhile, this guy is flying high, and he's doing everything against, whether it's Torah, etc. He's doing things in the wrong manner. The Alshich says, "Heref me'af." The pasuk says, telling that person, let go of your anger in your heart that you might have towards these Rishayim, towards these evildoers. Don't judge them for what they get, you don't get, they get for the goodness that they get. That's none of your business. You're not God. You don't understand how Hashem works. Now, also al tischar. Also, don't mingle with them. It's not a place that you should be mingling with them. Why? As we mentioned at the beginning of the capital, because you might learn from their ways, you might follow in their ways, etc. But it's very interesting that the word ach is here. What does ach mean? Ach is always coming to exclude something, always coming or to limit something. Over here, the Alshich says, don't mingle with them. Al tischar, don't mingle with them. Ach lahareya, only for the negativity. You want to mingle with them in order to be mekarev them, in order to bring them closer to Hashem. You want to mingle with them because you think that you can inspire them to do tshuva. Go right ahead. On the contrary, you should go. Al tischar, when shouldn't you mingle with them? Only lahareya, if it's about their negative. You want to go and schmooze about how they make their illegal millions. That you shouldn't do. You want to go schmooze with them and put on tefillin with them, or you want to give them Shabbos candles. That's okay, and that's the way the Alshich literally turns around the whole pasuk, that you should let the anger out of you. Leave the anger aside. It's not your business how Hashem's world works. You don't understand any of it. You don't understand what happens by you. You're not going to understand what happens by anybody else. So leave the anger on the side. It's not your place to judge. And you shouldn't talk and mingle with them for negativity. But if it's about helping them to do tshuva, on the contrary, you should. Ki mereim yikoreisa. Ultimately, those who do bad, mereim, from the word ra again. So, and talking about Rishayim, yikoreisun, they're going to be cut down, so to speak. They're going to disappear from the world. They're not going to last. The koivei Hashem, and those who put their trust in Hashem, Heima Yirshu Aretz, they're going to inherit the land. So pasuk number 9, Rashi says that the evildoers that you see now being successful, they're not going to. It's going to be short term. It's this is today's grass. Tomorrow's grass is going to be another grass, or next year's grass, or 10 years grass. This is what it is today. But he uses the word yikoreson. We cut down, similar to the grass example that he brings in the beginning of the chapter. The Radak says that the people who put their trust in Hashem will inherit the land, right? The end of the pasuk, the koivei Hashem, Heima Yirshu Aretz. What does it mean, Yirshu Aretz? The Radak says that they'll last forever. And this is a concept that The Jewish people are still here. We're here thousands of years later. How are we here thousands of years later? It doesn't make sense. It's impossible. It doesn't statistically, it doesn't make sense. And all those people who thought that they're going to make fortunes, and it's a famous, it's Kapitel Mentes 49. We'll get there in 3-4 months, that we say in a shiva house, right? And sometimes people say it in English, so it's actually a very powerful chapter. People, they name the states after themselves, and they think that that's what's going to make that's what's going to keep them in the next generation. People are always going to remember them. That's not who we remember. Who do we remember? We remember the Yehuda Anasi. We remember the sages of the Talmud. We still talk about them. We remember Moshe Rabbeinu. We remember the Baal Shem Tov. We remember the Rambam. Those are people that we remember. Did they create, amass great wealth and take and be big successful business people? Those people are long gone. We don't even remember them. It's very similar to the Jewish people in general as a whole versus all the other nations. The Jewish people are still here, and all the other nations are not. It's not because we're great warriors. It's not because of anything. It's because we learn Torah and we follow the Torah, and that's and only, unfortunately, but only Jewish people that do learn Torah and follow Torah are here in the next generation. After 3 generations of a family not being involved in Judaism like that, unfortunately, they do get lost, and it's a very sad thing. But the idea that the way that Radak explains pasuk number 9, that those who put their trust in Hashem, Yirshu Aretz, they're gonna inherit the land. They're gonna be here for the long run. The Alshich and others say that Aretz is not necessarily talking about land, meaning that they're gonna live long, or that their name will live long in this world. Talking about more in the world to come. And there's a lot in this chapter that you could translate, that different commentaries translate differently. Either that the tzaddikim are going to inherit land, meaning that they're going to have peace in their own land, in their own homes, in their own areas, or that means that they're going to have in the world to come. Because as we know, reward for doing Torah mitzvahs is not necessarily in this world. We create for ourselves a place in Olam Haba. When we do a mitzvah, when we learn Torah, we're creating for ourselves a place in the world to come. Ultimately, we're also refining this world, but still, the idea is in Olam Haba, and the fusion of those two will be when Mashiach comes. Pasuk 10. So we can continue over here and talk about this Rasha, right? That the previous pasuk started. Pasuk 9 said that the Mireim, those evildoers, they're going to be cut down, meaning they're not going to last long. But David HaMelech continues in pasuk number 10. He says, "Va'id ma'at," and it's going to be soon. Ve'in Rasha. Soon you're going to turn around, and that Rasha that you saw before, very soon he's not even going to be there. Vizbeinanta, not only that, you're going to focus on the place. You're going to focus on him. You're going to try to find him. You're going to try to find anything about him. You look at his place, and there's nothing left of him. There's no remembrance. We don't even remember him. Rashi says that if you wait just a short moment, the Rasha will disappear and won't be there anymore. That's the way Rashi explains the pasuk. The Mitzuda says that even if you see the Rasha being successful, you should know that it is for a short while, because Oid Ma'at, in a few moments, he could turn around and he's not there anymore. But it's not just ve'einenu, that he's not there anymore. It's ve'einenu means that there's no zeicher, there's no, we don't even, there's no, I don't even know how to say it, but it's like beyond not there. Nobody even remembers that he ever was there. There's nothing that he left in this world. He didn't make a positive impact, a positive change in this world that we could say, oh, this is that Yankel was here and he made this, etc. Pasuk number 11, Vanovim, and ultimately those humble ones, which is referring to the tzaddikim, to the righteous people, Yirshu Aretz, so they're going to inherit the land, Vis Angu al Reiv Shalom, and they're going to benefit and enjoy the peace. Why? When the Rasha is gone, it'll be more peaceful. And that's the gist of this pasuk, that once the Rasha is gone, so the righteous people and the humble people and the pious people, etc., they're going to live in more of a peaceful fashion. Basically, the Radak it says it like that, and he says that the humble ones that suffered when the Rishayim were around will inherit the land when the Rishayim are gone, and when the Rishayim are gone, there'll be peace and joy in the world. And that's pasuk number 11. Pasuk number 12. Now, so it's going back for a moment about this Rasha, and this Rasha that he looks at the tzaddik and he gets angry when he looks at the tzaddik. Zaymim Rasha la tzaddik. The Rasha looks at the tzaddik and he thinks of ways, and this is more connected to last chapter 36 that we did a few weeks ago. But they look at the tzaddik and they want to do harm to the tzaddik. Chayrikal of Shinav, he's gnashing his teeth. He's thinking, what could I do? How could I do? Now you have to keep in mind that we could look at this from the perspective of a regular bad guy that lives, on the other side of town. But you can also look at it as the Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara is also that Rasha that's inside of you, and he's looking to see, how could I make you trip up, and how can I make you fall, etc. He's also gnashing his teeth, trying to figure out what's my next move, what's my next step. And the Al-Sheikh over here comes and says that this pasuk number 12, he says, you might say and complain that the Rasha is bothering the tzaddik. A person might come and say that, look at this world is a terrible place. You have righteous people, you have good people, and you have these evil people, bad people, and they're bothering them, they're making trouble for them. So the Al-Sheikh says, look at pasuk number 13. Hashem Yitzchak Loi, Hashem is laughing at them. Hashem sees the bigger plan, and the Al-Sheikh says that you should know that Hashem is laughing at the Rasha. He's laughing at the Rasha, and he considers that even at this point, even now, even before he tries to do anything, he's as if he doesn't exist. Rasha does it. Hashem is going to take care of him. Knows the number of his days, and he's not going to be able to harm the tzaddik. And that's basically also the way other commentaries bring it up, the pasuk number 13, that Hashem laughs because you shouldn't think that the Rasha is so successful and that if he's going to want to harm somebody else, he'll be able to. No, Hashem sees, and Hashem will make sure that he won't be able to accomplish that his day, his final day will come before he's able to harm anybody.
Sorry, what was 12? The 12, the gnashes his teeth in English. What's that? The teeth, gnashes his teeth. What's that mean? I didn't get it.
You grit your teeth together when you're angry at somebody. You know what I mean? So like the Rasha is watching the tzaddik and he says, "Oh, I'm so successful. This tzaddik thinks he's righteous. It makes me angry." So you grind your teeth together. It's a visual of getting angry. Pasuk 14. So here, the way I understand this pasuk is that it's an example of the previous two verses. So previous two verses talk about the Rasha that wants to harm the tzaddik, and here in pasuk 14, he's giving an example. The Rasha even pulls out a sword. A Rasha might even try to pull out a sword. V'darchu kashtam, and they start pulling their arrows back on the what's it called, on the bow, exactly, the arrow back on the bow, and they're ready. And they're trying to whether it's to maim the poor and destitute, and or to kill those who are walking on the straight and narrow, which is referring to the righteous people, right? So that's as an example of what a Rasha might try to do. What's going to happen? David HaMelech continues. Basically, it's a repetition. Pasuk 12 and 13 gives you the theoretical, and Pasuk 14 and 15 gives you an example of it. What's going to happen? Charbam tavi belibam. The sword that they pulled out that they want to use against someone's walking on the straight and narrow, tavi belibam will come onto them. It will kill them. The kashteisam and their bow, tishavarna, it will break. And that's the idea over here, that giving an example of the Rasha, even though the Rasha is on top of the world, he feels that he's on top of the world. ultimately Hashem will make sure that it won't be able to harm those who are trying to go on this in the path of Torah and the path of Hashem. Pasuk 16, Toiv Ma'at Latzadik is a very powerful pasuk. There's that it's better, it's good, Toiv, it's great, it's the better way. Ma'at Latzadik, the little bit that the tzaddik has, Mehamoin Rishayim Rabim, from the Hamoin. Hamoin means the multitude of many Rishayim. That the little bit of tzaddik. So how you could translate this pasuk in many ways. You could translate it that a world that has even a few tzaddikim and many rishoyim is still a good place. Meaning that, right? That all you need is a few good people. So different ways that you could look at it. The Mamleya translates it a little bit differently. He says the little help that you get from Hashem, the tzaddik gets help from Hashem. The little help that you get from Hashem is greater than all the help that the Rasha has. The Rasha has got money, the Rasha has got friends, and the Rasha has got even friends in high places, etc. The little help that you get from Hashem is way beyond anything of physical help, of a physical way of doing things. And that's the Toiv Ma'at LaTzadik, the little bit that the tzaddik gets help from Hashem is better Me'amoin Rishayim Rabim, from many Rishayim and from all their possessions, etc. As I mentioned before, but it comes from Rashi. Rashi says, Toiv Ma'at LaTzadik, that all you need is a few good men, and even if there's bad ones, but all you need is Ma'at Tzadik, a few good, righteous people. The Radak, though, translates it a little bit differently. He says, Toiv Ma'at LaTzadik, that the Tzadik is happy with little. We talked about this already in this chapter, when we brought the example of Bill Gates. Poor guy, I'm harping on him. I don't mean anything bad for him, but a tzaddik doesn't need a lot. Toiv Ma'at is good. He doesn't need so much. He's satisfied. A Rasha is never satisfied. A bad person, we learned this also in Pirkei Avos, right? Ezu Asher, Asameach Bechelkai, who's wealthy, someone who says that what I have is enough. That's a wealthy person. For someone to come and that he has already everything that he needs, but no, I need more, and I'm not happy, I need more. That's not a tzaddik approach, not a Jewish approach. That's a Rasha approach, and that tzaddik is happy with a little bit. Pasuk number 17. So the Rishayim should be afraid, because Hashem will break their arm. The literal translation is breaking their arm, but obviously what it means that Hashem will break their power, their strength. Arm represents even the emoji of the arm, right? Even the emoji of the arm represents strength, right? The emoji of the arm. The Hashem breaks their strength, breaks their arm, meaning breaking their strength, and is a support. V'saymich tzadikim Hashem, and Hashem is a support to the tzaddik, to the righteous. Pasuk 18, Yedei Hashem yimei tmimim. Hashem knows the days of the tmimim. And what is the tmimim? The tmimim are those who are innocent. Is one of the translations that are given, but the Talmud means that they're wholehearted with Hashem. They're simple. They're simple and full with Hashem. That's so Hashem knows the days of the tmimim, of those simple that follow in the ways of Hashem. And what does it mean? That Hashem gives them long days, right? And nachalosam, and their inheritance, meaning they're what they're going to continue. Whatever they have is going to continue on forever. So Rashi says that Hashem knows how the pious filled their days. That the tmimim, the simple people that follow in Hashem's ways, they fill their days from beginning to end. There's no lack in their days, right? As the famous Rashi on Avram Zakim Baba Yamim, right? That what does it mean that Avram comes in his days? It means that his days were full days. He filled every day to its maximum, to its fullest. He used every moment. He used every day. So a pious person, he uses every day, he uses every moment. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to use every moment in a positive way, in a good way, in the Asay Tov approach, following in Hashem's ways, so then your name will last forever. Then you're gonna be a Rebbe Kiva. Then you're gonna be a Rebbe Yehuda Anasi. Then you're gonna be someone that the people are gonna remember you. Not if you're gonna be, if you're gonna be a successful businessman, etc. That's not. Nobody remembers those in the later after in the next generation, etc. The Radak translates a little bit differently, and he says that Yedei Hashem Smimim is that Hashem notices, Hashem keeps an eye on the days of the simple ones that follow in Hashem's ways and gives them the blessing of long life. He lengthens their days. Pasuk 19, Le'yevoishu. Now this tzaddik that goes around and he manages on a meager little bit. He doesn't need more. He's okay. He's happy with what he has. So Le'yevaishu, he won't be embarrassed be'esra, in a hard time. So you can imagine someone that's a very successful businessman. He has to keep up his appearance, but all of a sudden he's going through a rough time. What does he do? He borrows money to make sure that he could show that he's still, driving the fanciest cars and goes out and spends a lot of money, on different things. But a tzaddik, it's a hard time. Okay, I can manage through the hard time. I manage through regular time. I don't need a lot. And such a person, Hashem will make sure will be made of in the days of when there's a lack of food. Yisbo, they're going to have enough what to eat, that they'll have enough. And basically, the pasuk, what David Melch is saying, that those who follow in Hashem's ways, they'll always have what they need financially and with food and clothing, etc. But key in pasuk number 20. Oh, sorry. The Al-Sheikh over here says, pasuk 19, the Al-Sheikh says that even in a hard time, a tzaddik relies on little, so he puts his trust in Hashem. And the Mamlayeh says that when bad things happen in the world, the tzaddik is not embarrassed and he puts his trust in Hashem. Right? If bad things happen in the world, some people could shy away and say, I'm embarrassed by it. But tzaddik doesn't get embarrassed. That's the way the Mamlayeh translates, Lo yevoishu be'esra. They don't get embarrassed in a hard time. Pasuk number 20, so ki usually means because, but over here it means but. Ki rishayim, but the evildoers. But the rishayim, the evildoers, as opposed to the tzaddikim that we mentioned before. But the rishayim yavedu, they're going to disappear. They're not going to last, not in this world, and their name won't last further on. Vayve Hashem, and those who are go against Hashem, those who dafka stand up and try to go against Hashem. So he says, Kikar Karim, they are going to be like the fats of an animal, kalu ba'asham kalu, and that will burn on a barbecue, basically, or on a mizbeach. I'm not sure which one it's referring to, but they'll burn. So again, look at the pasuk. Yeah.
There's a strange translation here. Very
on which
strange.
pasuk 20?
On the one that you're just translated. Here it says, "But the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of Hashem, like the beauty of meadows, they are totally consumed in smoke." Doesn't make any sense in English.
What's beauty of meadows?
Ach, weiß nicht. This is the Tehillim, the Schattensein edition. How did they come? How did they come? It doesn't make any sense.
Over here, the translation says like this: for the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of Hashem will be consumed in smoke, like the fat of sheep upon the altar.
So that's like the fat of sheep upon the altar. Here they translate like the beauty of meadows.
So I don't know what that is.
When you look at the Hebrew, is there any double definition that could tell you meadows?
I don't know. Kikar karim. Everything that I saw, it says it's talking about fats of an animal that get totally burned on the mizbeach. There's certain fats that get totally burned.
The way you're translating it makes sense. The way this translation doesn't make any sense at all.
Right.
Not in English. Yeah. Doesn't make any sense in English.
Right. Okay. No. I can't answer for them. But there's a beautiful al-shich on this pasuk, on pasuk number 20. The al-shich says that someone that just gives into every pleasure of his, a person that just gives into every pleasure ultimately, where's that? We had it in Pirkei Avos chapter 2. Ultimately, where does it go? You're fodder for the after 120. You're just giving. You have more fodder for the worms, and maggots, right? That's what it is. So the Alshich says over here that the wealth of a Rasha, it works against them. A person that eats more and it just indulges himself, etc., right? So the Alshich says, the pasuk is saying he's similar to an animal that you stuff. Why would you stuff an animal, right? They force feed animals, chickens, animals that they're going to shecht, an animal that you're going to slaughter in order to use its meat. Why? You're going to feed it more. The fatter it is, the better the meat is. So you make sure that they eat a lot, right? So so Hashem, in a way, the Alshich says that Hashem is giving them more, is stuffing them more, so to speak. But ultimately, ultimately they'll fall. The Medrash brings, if I remember correctly, the Medrash brings this pasuk and says that's what happened to Haman. Haman in the story of Purim, that Hashem, obviously Hashem runs the world and everything happens by the way Hashem wants it, and Hashem lifts Haman. All of a sudden he becomes the viceroy, becomes all the way up top with Achashverosh, and then he falls. And he dies. He gets hung, right? And that's the idea of the pasuk. Like Yerushalayim, ultimately avedu. Yeah, they might lift up. They might be kikar karim. They might get stuffed, force fed, so to speak. But only because their fall will be greater after they rise up like that. And that's the way the something that the Medrash brings up. If I remember correctly, it specifically brings up this pasuk. But regardless if it's this pasuk or another pasuk, the idea of a Russia, sometimes a Russia take goes up high. People at that time were thinking, what's going on? Haman, why is Hashem taking care of him? Why is he still making trouble for the Jewish people? Ultimately, he was raised up in order that the fall should be greater, to show what happens truly to a Russia. Pasuk 21. By the way, with that we finish halfway through the chapter, but the rest of the chapter is a little shorter. It's not as long, the commentary in it, but usually we try to keep the class to an hour. Today, there's no chance it will be. Pasuk 21. Now this Rasha, so he has. We just mentioned that the Rasha rises and he falls, and the Rasha on his way down. So he doesn't. Now he needs money. He needs something. So and he can't. In a case where he can't steal, so then he borrows money, doesn't pay it back. And what happens? What's a true righteous person? A tzaddik. A tzaddik is always giving and continuing to give. Chana says that we got through half of the chapter, so we have to here. You want to say hi? Here, say hi. You want to say hi? Oh, you're so tired. Want to learn some Tehillim? What? He sat through all the notes writing, so he knows this chapter, right? And at one point he was saying, so I think he knew it already. So and it's a cutie pie. That was I have to grabs. Amen. Thank you.
Maybe he's just bored. He looked like he was falling asleep there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, listen, he's your son.
Right. Yeah, Chana says that he heard it already. So maybe Taka. Yeah. So Pasuk 21, the Metzudah says, I mentioned that already, that when he can't steal anymore, so he takes loans and doesn't pay it back. The Radak says there's a difference between the Rasha and the Tzaddik. The Rasha doesn't only not help others. By the way, thank you everybody for the mazel tovs and etc. Should merit to always have happy occasions, and that we could, especially that we could share. But we should all, each and every one of you, and we should all have happy occasions to celebrate together, celebrate on our own. But should always have happy occasions. Should always have mazel tovs. So the Radak says that the difference between that, this pasuk 21 is saying the difference between a Rasha and a Tzaddik. A Rasha doesn't care about anybody else; he only cares about himself. So not only doesn't he help others, he takes advantage of others. A Tzaddik cares about everybody else. It doesn't have to care so much about himself. I'll think about myself later on. I'm not in a rush to think about myself. I'll take care of everybody else. Chaynin v'naisen. He's helping out everybody else. That's what a tzaddik does. Because it's not about him. And if I need something, I'm okay. Everything is fine. That's the difference between tzaddik and rasha. That's the way that Radak explains this pasuk. Pasuk 22. Those who bless. Those who are blessed from Hashem, ultimately Yirshuv, they're going to inherit land. So it could be land physically, or it could be the world to come. Those who are blessed will have a place in the world to come. And Mukulalav, those who are cursed, meaning the Rishayim, Yikoresu, will be cut off from Hashem. So the Radak says it's a simple, straightforward. Those who follow Hashem's ways will be blessed and will last, will continue, and those who don't will cease to exist. The tzaddik is not worried that the money will run out, and that's the important thing over here. And it's brought down from the beginning of the chapter. From the beginning of the chapter, when we said that David HaMelech is telling you, don't worry, you're going to give tzedakah. Don't worry what it's going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow you should take care of before you give tzedakah. But don't worry what's going to be next week, or it's next month, or next year. Don't make Hashem's calculations for him. Don't worry. A tzaddik doesn't worry that the money will run out. He knows that ultimately everything that he has, anything that he had or will have, is a blessing from Hashem, and that's what he should focus on. Pasuk 23. That your steps, the steps of a tzaddik, are designed by Hashem. And Hashem wants that we should follow in that way. So the Mitzvah says that Hashem prepares our path for us. Hashem prepares it. Hashem wants us to be successful. Hashem even helps us to go along that path. That's what Hashem wants, and Hashem will help us go along as long as we start it off, so to speak. We take a step in the right direction. Hashem will help us continue in that right path. The Radak says that the tzaddik has to overcome and not follow the rasha, and then Hashem takes care of the rest. That's what a person needs to do. In Chassidic philosophy, in Chassidus, this pasuk is a very powerful pasuk, because this pasuk brings out the idea of hashgacha pratis, the idea of divine personal providence. That's me Hashem. What my steps? I decided to walk down the hallway. No, Hashem wants me to walk down the hallway. Me Hashem mitzadig ever. That the steps of man come from Hashem. Hashem runs the world. Hashem decides how things are going to happen, what's going to happen, in what way they're going to happen, and that's another explanation on this pasuk, bringing up the idea of divine personal providence, how Hashem runs every aspect of the world, even the steps that we take. Pasuk 24, that sometimes it's going to happen that a tzaddik will fall, that a tzaddik will go through a period of time of uncertainty, of not having, whether it's a loss of parnasa, a loss of his livelihood, and not have enough, so to speak, to put food on the table, or to clothe his children, etc. So, but the pasuk says, and David HaMelech says, Ki yipel, when he falls, lo yutol, he's not going to fall all the way. A tzaddik will never fall all the way. Why? Ki Hashem seimich yadei, because Hashem holds him up, right? So the Mitzvah says that even if the tzaddik falls, it won't be all the way to the ground. And the Radak adds that if the tzaddik loses his possessions, it won't be totally, because Hashem will make sure always to support the tzaddik. And then the pasuk continues. Nara Yisi, this is a famous pasuk. Whether from the time I was a lad, Gam Zakanti, whether it's the time that I was an elderly person, Loira isi tzaddik nezov. I've never witnessed a tzaddik, a righteous person, a good person, a person following in the ways of Hashem. Nezov, meaning let go, meaning that he didn't have what he needed, or vizarim mevakish lachem, or that his children were knocking on doors in order to get bread, meaning that they didn't have any food in the house. Right. So what's this pasuk? So first of all, Rashi says that this pasuk was not said by King David. This pasuk, the world says. Everybody says there's no such a thing as a righteous person that doesn't have what he needs. Okay, he could fall a little bit, but not have everything that he needs. But to say that he doesn't have anything that he needs, the world says this, that from when we were younger until we were older, etc. Why? Because David HaMelech was never zaken. He was never zakanti. He didn't really live to a ripe old age. So therefore Rashi says that this pasuk was not said by King David himself. But the Radak says that it seems that it was said by King David that whether it's in my youth, my elderly time, all my life, I've never seen a tzaddik totally let go, or that his children would go and ask for food. Pasuk 26. Even when a tzaddik goes through a hard time, he's still trying to help others. He's even lending money to others, etc. And his children, livracha. Everybody calls a blessing. You ever see that sometimes people see a family and say, "Oh, your children are such a blessing," if they're acting nicely, etc. Right? Why? Because the parents brought them up well. So kol hayom, even it's a righteous person that even when he's going through a hard time, nonetheless, he still makes sure to help others. What's going to be? People are going to say, "Oh, your children are such a blessing," because the children are going to see how the parents act, and they're going to follow in the same ways as the parents. That's what the Radak says. That's the way the Radak explains this pasuk. Rashi and the Mitzudah says that tzaddik gets this reward because the whole day he's doing chesed for others, and that's the kol hayom. If all day he's helping others, so he gets the blessing of children that are a blessing. Plus, and I witnessed to that, especially this week, children and babies, ultimate blessing. Pasuk 27. So, since you want to stay away from the Rasha and follow on the path of the righteous, so what does David HaMelech say? Sur meira, stay away from bad, v'asei tov, and do good, u'shchein la'ilam, and then you're going to be able to sit peacefully forever. That's the Pasuk 27. So the Radak says, if you watch how Hashem ultimately treats the tzaddikim and Rishayim, and you see not in the moment, but in the general picture, that tzaddikim, they last forever. As we mentioned many times, it's not about financial, it's not about the house, it's not about the car. It's about who are we talking about today? We're talking about the Rambam. We're talking about David HaMelech today, right? That's who we're talking about. The Radak, Rashi, that's who we're talking about. And that's what you see. So you'll stay away from Ra, from bad, and you'll do good. And if you do that, you'll be around for a long time, and in peace. In peace. This way the Radak explains it. The Al-Sheikh says that this is talking to the Rasha. It's a very interesting thing, because he kind of turns it on its head. None of the other commentaries that I saw translate it this way, but the Al-Sheikh says that he tells the Rasha that you see the tzaddik, you see the Rasha, and you see what's going on. So sur mirav asay taiv, do tshuva, stay away from bad, do good. You could also do tshuva, and you will be forgiven. And you will be forgiven. Hashem will help you even to do tshuva. The Gemara brings down this pasuk and says, why does it say sur mirav asay taiv? So a person shouldn't say, why does this pasuk even come up? So previously it said about not talking evil, etc. So a person might say, okay, so I won't sin. But other than that, I'm going to go take a nap, the Gemara says. The Gemara says, in order not to sin, I'm just going to sleep a whole day. I'll make sure that I won't sin. So it says that's sur meirah, but you also have to do asay tov. And that's very important. It's part of the process that you have to do asay tov, and that's why he's bringing it down, that it's not good enough to just stay away from bad. It's also very important, most important, to do good, which means to do a mitzvah, to do another mitzvah. Pasuk 28, Hashem loves to do mishpat oyev. Hashem likes to do judgment, in a proper judgment, and he will never forsake the pious ones. He'll always watch over them. And the Zer Rishayim Nichras, and those and the descendants of the Rasha, they won't last. They'll disappear. Radak says that Hashem likes those who are upright, and Hashem won't forget them, and Hashem will protect them. Pasuk 29. And the tzaddikim ultimately, Yershuaretz, the tzaddikim will inherit the land, and they'll be there forever. So there's two ways you could look at it. You could either look at it that they're going to inherit the land because the Rishayim will be gone, and the tzaddikim will inherit the land, and once their shem are gone, they'll be able to live in peace and in harmony and forever on the land. Or it could be in the world to come that tzaddikim are making for themselves, and we all do. Whenever we do a mitzvah, we make for ourselves a place, a piece of land, a piece of real estate, but not physical real estate, a piece of real estate in Olam Haba, in the world to come. And now we go on and we say, not only does the tzaddik help out, that he is helping people all the time, etc., etc. Not only does he do that, he also shares his wisdom. That his mouth is always sharing wisdom. Or if someone asks him for a mishpat, someone asks him for a judgment, what does halacha say? How does halacha say in this case, etc.? The tzaddik doesn't shy away and helps out in that way. It helps out in that way as well. Pasuk 31, and Torah selikav b'liboy, that the Torah, that Hashem's Torah is in his heart. When Hashem's Torah is in his heart, he will not falter. His feet won't slip. The Radak says that the Rasha realizes that the tzaddik is being successful. He tries to give him an ayin hara, right? He tries to make him trip up, that he should slip. Hashem helps him that he should be able to overcome that, overcome the Rasha's trying to make him slip up. And we can learn it also from the Yetzer Hara, the ultimate Rasha, that tries to make us slip up. So studying Hashem's Torah will help us overcome our Yetzer, will help us overcome our Yetzer Hara. Imam Loya says that the idea of that Hashem's Torah in this pasuk, Hashem's Torah is in your heart, and therefore you won't falter. Imam Loya says that if you fill your heart with Torah, there'll be no place for the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara will have no place. You're going to fill your heart, just like you fill your time with good things. So you're not going to have the Yetzer Hara won't have the opportunity to slip you up. Pasuk 32, right? The Rasha looks towards the tzaddik and he tries to. So la misai means to kill him, but it's not. It could be a spiritual killing, and it could be Yetzer Hara is looking at you and trying to make you fall spiritually. The Al-Sheikh says that it's referring to the Yetzer Hara, so that's. But whether it's a Rasha or a regular evil person or a Yetzer Hara, either way, they're trying to slip up a righteous person. By the way, it says a lot about a tzaddik in this chapter. So a person might come and say, "What does this chapter have to do with me? I'm far from a tzaddik. How could this chapter be talking to me?" At least that's what I say when I originally looked at this chapter. But every time that you do a mitzvah, at that moment you're a tzaddik, and you have to look at it that way. The moment that you fill with Torah, the moment that you feel that this moment my heart is full of Torah, this hour, this class is longer than an hour, but so this hour and a half, my heart is full of Torah. The Yetzer Hara has no place. You say, think about it. For the last hour and 15 minutes, did the Yetzer Hara was the Yetzer Hara successful? No, because you're busy. You can't. There's no time. The Yetzer Hara can't mix in, and that's so on that level. For now, we're on a level of a tzaddik, and that's the idea of. Torah selikav b'liboy, the Torah is in your heart, so then you won't slip up. You can't slip up. Pasuk 33, Hashem lo yazvenu b'yadai. Hashem won't leave the tzaddik in the hands of the Rasha. V'lo yarshienu b'yishavtai, and he won't let the Rasha. He won't let the Rasha. What we said that the Rasha tries to make the tzaddik slip up. How does he do it? He tries to give him an ayin hara. So, for example, a Rasha could come up and say, spread a rumor that this tzaddik did this sin or this wrong, etc., etc. So this pasuk says that Hashem won't let him. Hashem leyazvenu b'yadei, won't let him, won't give him into his hand. And Hashem won't let him drag the person's name. He won't be able to blame something on the tzaddik. Hashem will show, so to speak, that it's unfounded. Kaveh el Hashem u'shmer darkei. Put your trust in Hashem, pasuk 34, and follow in His ways. V'yer mimcha l'reshes aretz, and He'll elevate you to inherit the land, and the Rishayim, the evil people, will disappear from the land. The Radak says that David is saying over here that even if your success aren't great, put your trust in Hashem. That's the main thing. Go in His ways, and you'll see, as I've seen. The Radak says, the David Melech saying that I've seen this, and so you'll see like I've seen. So listen to me, follow in Hashem's ways, and success will come. It hasn't come yet. Don't worry, it's going to come. The Alshich says that you should never believe that the Yetzer Hara has full power over you. A person might think that I fell so deep, I fell so far that I have no power left, and the Yetzer Hara, whatever the Yetzer Hara says, I can't control my Yetzer Hara. What is it? The only way out is to put your trust in Hashem, and He'll help you to the path of tshuva. This is similar. It reminds me similar to like an addict. An addict. One of the 12 steps for in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is to put your that I can't overcome this on my own. There's a higher power. Yeah, in Judaism, we call it God, but in AA they refer to this higher power, and they tell you when you do AA that if you're Jewish, you think about it as Hashem. If you're Muslim, think about it as Allah. Whatever it is, but there's a higher power that's going to help you get through it. But this we don't need AA for that. Someone that needs AA needs AA, but we don't need AA for that. We have the Eibishter, and we know that even if we're in the depths and we think that it's impossible to get out of it, don't worry. Hashem can always take you out of it. Yetzer Hara has never full power over you. It's interesting that it says over here, and the Mamleis brings it up, that it says, "Kaveh el Hashem, put your trust in Hashem, ushmar darkoi, and follow His way." It doesn't say ways. It doesn't say in plural. It says in a singular term. And the Mamleis brings from here that it's not about everything. It's not say put your trust in Hashem and make sure that you all do all 613 mitzvahs. And then Hashem will help you. No, it's not what it means. Shmar darkoi, do one mitzvah properly, do one mitzvah thoroughly, do one mitzvah fully. It's all about one darkoi, one way. Not in the plural. It's in the singular. Pasuk 35. Raisi, David Melech continues and he says, I saw we talk about a Russia that doesn't last, right? So he says, I saw this Russia, I saw this evil person. Aretz, he was strong, he was successful, he was a umisara, and he was well planted in the ground, like this tree, and like he wasn't going anywhere. I saw this Russia, and Pasuk 36, Vayaver v'hinei nenu. And I came back later and I see he's gone. I even asked after him, and nobody even remembers him. This is what David Melech says. So that's the simple pshat of these psukim. The Alshich, though, says, it's a beautiful way of the Alshich explaining it. It says that David Melech is saying something slightly different. Actually radically different. That Ra'isi Rasha Aritz, I saw Rasha, he was strong, he was a real Rasha, he was full of his negativity and his evilness, etc. But then I saw he turned his life around. There was this Rasha, but he turned his life around. He did a full tshuva. Now he's Ezra Chrana. When you do a proper tshuva, there's hope. You could be like a strong tree, a beautiful tree, Ezra Chrana. And then Vayaver v'hinei nenu. And I look around, he's no more. Hashem has his ways. Hashem deals with things in his own way. So that's the way the Alshich translates these psukim. It's a radically different approach. They're both beautiful. But it's very interesting, and we mentioned the Alshich very often. The Alshich was like a Kabbalist. He was so his approach fits more with a Hasidic twist. Chana asked me earlier today, so he must have been a Chassid. He's before Chassidim, but still, it's the idea definitely is there. Pasuk 37, Shmar Tom. So you should follow in a simplistic way. Watch the ways of the innocent and learn from their ways. Look at the Tam. The Tam, not the Tam from the Haggadah Shel Pesach. That's not the Tam we're talking about. The Tam is the simpleton that knows, is well learned, but follows Hashem in a simple way, not a complicated way that I this and that. No, simple way. Hashem wants me to do this now, I do this now. Hashem wants me to do that now. Follow from those, the innocent people, the innocent, simple people that follow in Hashem's ways. And in the end, ki achris, because if you do that, at the end, ish shalom will be very nice and peaceful. As opposed to the Rishayim, as opposed to the Rishayim and the sinners, that they are destroyed and there's no remembrance of them in this world. Pasuk 39, the salvation of the tzaddikim comes from Hashem. Ma'uzam be'sara. Hashem is their stronghold in a time of tzara. Hashem is always there to help them in their time of need. So the Radak says that tzaddikim, so first of all, their salvation comes from Hashem and the stronghold in difficult times. But what it means is that they'll never falter, that they'll never trip up, because Hashem will always protect them. Hashem will always make sure that they won't fall. The Al-Shich says that over here the pasuk is saying that Hashem will help the tzaddik overcome the Yetzer Hara. He will be their stronghold even if their mazel wants to bring a tzara, meaning that sometimes a person, for whatever reason, something is coming to them. Even in such a case, Hashem will protect the righteous. The famous story of Rabbi Kiva's daughter, right? That Rabbi Kiva was told that his daughter was going to pass away on her wedding night. He was very sad about it, etc., etc. And Payal Mamish came to the wedding night, and she got very busy. The bride was busy. What was she doing? Instead of greeting all the guests and taking all the gifts, instead of being busy with all the other things that brides are usually busy with, she was making sure that every poor person that came to the wedding had a plate of food. And at one point, she was so busy that she took the pin out of her hair and she stuck it in the wall. She stuck it in the wall. So they wake up the next morning and they take out the pin, and it killed a snake in the wall. Right, the snake was coming, meaning that even if the mazel, what was supposed to happen was something negative, Hashem takes care of the righteous. You do your part, you do the right thing, Hashem will take them even based tzara. Pasuk 40, Pasuk Mem, Vayazim Hashem Vayifaltem. Hashem helps them and saves them from the Rishayim, V'yashiyim, and brings them salvation. Ki chasu by. Why? Because they put their trust in Hashem. Right? That's what the Radak says, that Hashem helps against the Rishayim. Ultimately, ki chasu by. When we put our trust in Hashem, Hashem helps us out. The Radak continues and says that he mentions things in this chapter over and over, mentions it many times because it doesn't necessarily come natural. This idea of putting our trust in Hashem, naturally, we look at the successful people and we want to be more like them. It's not a natural thing that we should say, 1 second, everything comes from Hashem and what I have is what I need, etc., etc. But we know that we should recognize that everything comes from Hashem, and it takes a few times of saying the same thing, so to speak, in order for us to understand it. The Mamlaya says that if you look at this pasuk, this final pasuk, it says Vayazne, that Hashem has helped them in the past, right? And then Vayazim Hashem Vayifaltem, that Hashem has saved them and helped them in the past. And Yifaltem, He will in the future. And this is a theme that David HaMelech has in Tehillim, that we've seen it already many times. Just as we got to chapter 37, we've already seen it many times. David HaMelech always reminds us that Hashem has done it before. It's not something brand new, it's something that He's done before. So if Hashem has done it before, we know for sure that He will do it again. Hashem will take care of the righteous, will take care of those who try to do things in the proper and righteous way. And with that, we finish chapter 37. Shkach, everybody. Looking forward to next week, chapter 38. By the way, chapter 37 is also Chana's chapter, right? We say a chapter for our age. I don't know, giving away Chana's secrets over here, but it's Chana's chapter for her age. Mine is not 38, mine is 39. Mine comes up in 2 weeks. My chapter of Tehillim. I'm actually looking forward to it because I say it, but to understand it a little bit better would be much more geschmack. So, yeah. Shkoyach, everybody. L'chaim, l'chaim. Any questions? It's too long for questions, I know.